Hey everybody, welcome to CAF Warbird Tube, the show where we talk about World War II, aviation, history, and so much more. Warbird Tube is produced by the Commemorative Air Force, the world's largest flying museum. Our mission is to educate, inspire, and honor through flight and living history experiences. The CAF began the Warbird movement more than 65 years ago, and thanks to the support of individuals like you, we continue to grow strong. We hope you enjoyed this episode, and now our host, Steve Buss. Thanks for watching and keep 'em flying.
Good evening and welcome to CAF Warbird Tube. This is episode number 150 of Warbird Tube. And tonight we're going to take a look ahead at the upcoming AirPower History Tour and a little bit about, well, I guess the cycle that the B-29, B-24 squadron goes through from beginning of the year to the end of the year to make these tours work. And we'll find out more with Jeremy Lashbrook in just a moment. But before we get started, please do us a favor. If you haven't already done so, and I know many of you have, and I thank you for that, but if you haven't done so, take a second to like, share, or subscribe and follow us. And if you do subscribe on YouTube, click that bell icon. That way you'll get notifications whenever any new Warbird Tube episodes are posted. Now, Warbird Tube is made possible by the Commemorative Air Force. To find out more about CAF, our events, our aircraft, local units, or how you can join the fun, just visit our website, commemorativeairforce.org. Now, as you're watching tonight, if you have any questions, just type those in the chat box, and I'll try to get them into our presentation during the show, or we'll save some time before we sign off to answer any questions you might have. But again, just type those in the chat box. So joining me now is the leader of the B-29, B-24 squadron, Jeremy Lashbrook. Jeremy, great to have you on the show tonight.
Hey, Steve, glad to be here. Thanks for having the AirPower History Tour, the B-29, B-24 squadron, and me on tonight.
Well, good. I guess, you know, I kind of alluded to the fact that we're going to look at the year, the cycle that goes into the tour, and we're going to take a trip back in time to the very first B-29 tour. But before we do, tell us a little bit about your background and how you got involved with CAF and the B-29, B-24 squadron.
Yeah, I'm a third generation pilot, so I grew up around warbirds and general aviation aircraft. I spent a few years in the military, retired from that, and as I was getting ready to retire, I, just like a lot of our volunteers, just bumped into the B-29, B-24 squadron at a stop and started talking to some of the pilots and what they do, and they invited me to come to ground school, and somehow 6 years later, I'm honored to be the wing leader of the B-29, B-24 squadron.
Oh, awesome, awesome. Well, let's take a trip back in time, back to summer of 1975.
Yeah, you know, Steve, you can't tell the story of Warbird touring without talking about FIFI, because FIFI was actually the very first Warbird to tour and kind of started the whole process. So, you know, in 1974, when FIFI was flown from China Lake to Harlingen, you know, she spent a few years down getting ready for maintenance, or going through a lot of maintenance, and then you know, actually flew the first time in 1974. And the B-29 was very expensive to operate. In fact, the general staff kind of made the statement they could fly 5 P-47s for what it cost to fly the B-29. So they basically stopped flying the aircraft, which of course this made Colonel Victor Agatha pretty furious. He had spent a lot of money trying to get the aircraft home and out of the desert, with a lot of help from other volunteers, and to now be told they couldn't afford to fly the airplane. His answer was kind of, watch me. So you can see he's one of the men in this picture, along with Randy Sohn. And the story I was told is that Vic went to Randy Sohn and said, hey, what can we do? How can we figure out how to operate this aircraft? And they came up with the idea of touring. And so this is actually a picture from the very first tour stop in the summer of 1975. It was in San Angelo, Texas. And so that's really how touring started. Back then, it was mostly just cockpit tours, but they would bring an air stair door up to the side of the aircraft. People could go up the air stair, look inside the aircraft. They did have a PX of sort. They had a guy who had a somewhat looked like a food truck. He would drive it around, sell shirts, hats, towels, things like that. And that's how touring started. And then after FIFI went through the engine upgrade in the early 2000s, I think flew first time after the engine upgrade in 2009. That's when the ride flights started. And they actually started out on the West Coast. I think they were out in Camarillo, California. And then it was the first aircraft out doing ride flights. And then, Diamond Lil followed on afterwards. So somewhat the B-29, B-24 squadron is responsible for starting this whole touring and ride program.
Yeah, it's amazing. You can see that. Is that the gentleman in the middle wearing the Stetson? Is that Vic?
No, I believe that's him sitting down with a hat on there. Yes, sir.
Yeah. Okay. And then there's Randy behind him. But
yes,
anyway, the back in the days when they wore the Stetsons, the bomber crews always had black Stetsons because they were costing CAF so much money to fly. So it was always the black hats and the white hats within the CAF. So a little inside baseball there for you.
Well, you'll see in some other pictures, we haven't gotten too far away from that.
Yep. So this is the tour we're looking at this year.
Yeah, that's the plan this year. We're going to start off we got an event up in Tulsa. We'll take both airplanes, go up there and back for an event, and then eventually leave out of Dallas Executive Airport where we're based and start that trip around the country. You can kind of see a lot of it is up north. It's just a lot of times in the summertime, it's hot down south and not a good time to be out walking around on a hot ramp looking at airplanes. So we do spend a lot of time where we can find some cooler spots and comfortable for the aircraft as well as people that come to see us.
Good. How do you determine where you're going each year?
Well, we have normally we'd like to have a touring committee, but this year we have a wonderful volunteer, a guy named Matthew Hood, who has worked really hard on our plan for the year, and it's a challenge. He's working really, really hard, and we have some things that are normally planned earlier in the year, like we'll have some air shows that'll have ask us to be there, and one of the big ones there is Reading. They do the World War II weekend at Reading, and we kind of have that planned, at least a year, maybe more in advance. So our first few stops may be on the way to Reading. Okay, we need to be at Reading this date. And so what are some stops that are good stops to get us there? And so sometimes air shows, Oshkosh also helps kind of make that decision. If there's a year we're going to Oshkosh, we'll find some stops around there. Our full-time administrative staff, we have a guy named Jeremy Ott, works in our office full-time, and he is doing a great job of looking back through the years at places that have been great stops. And so we're using that data to see, hey, where did we have a good turnout? Where did we have good weather? And so putting all that together also with cities and airports that work with us well. I know this may seem simple to think of just planning a stop somewhere, but there is a tremendous amount of work that goes into this with making sure the airport's happy with us, the city's happy with us. There's lots of contracts and lawyers and things that get involved in it. So it is a tremendous amount of work and planning. But Matt calls this year his Moneyball year. It's a lot of just data and stats to decide what are good places and good stops for us to go to this year.
Good.
So that's home for us. B-29, B-24 squadron, we're based at Dallas Executive Airport at the CAF headquarters there in the Victor Agatha hangar. So you can see FIFI, Diamond Lil, and that's our steerman sitting over there in the corner. So I'll talk a little bit now.
Okay.
Sorry.
I was just saying the AirPower Tour itself features a number of different aircraft. It's not just the B-29.
Sure, yeah, it does. Yeah, so right here you see the first picture is the B-29. Of course, that's one of our touring airplanes, great for cockpit tours and for passenger flights. And of course, there's Diamond Lil also, one of our squadron aircraft and one of the big hits out there on the tour also. And our B-29, B-24 squadron steerman, certainly one of the busiest airplanes on the tour. It's one of the ones that most of us as pilots on the tour started off in, and we all love that airplane a lot and still try to sneak in there and get to fly as much as we can. Also, the Wasp T6 Nella is out on tour with us. Certainly near and dear to my heart. I spent the last couple of years as the operations officer for the Wasp Squadron. So this is a great airplane to have with us, great for ride flights, and an amazing story that we all love to tell. Of course, can't go anywhere without the P-51 gunfighter. They're a great group of folks. They travel with us. They work really hard. So again, we do have a couple of squadrons, the Wasp Squadron, gunfighter, and the Indiana Wing. They're with us at most stops. So there's the Indiana Wing's C-45H. They call it Bob, which is the big oily beast. They travel around with us in the summertime, make most of the stops with us, and they're a great bunch of guys and gals, work really hard, and that aircraft sells a lot of seats. So we're really, really honored to have them out with us.
So when you show up at a tour stop, this is again not just one single aircraft. It's a whole it's almost a mini squadron. But one of the nice things is you encompass the entire range of aircraft from World War II, from a basic trainer like the Stearman all the way up to the B-29, and the C-45 of course was also a trainer. And with those and doing the flights, you also have different price points, which helps, not everybody can sit in the front seat of the B-29 or take a ride in a Mustang, but some of the other aircraft are more budget friendly.
Yeah, they really are. So you're right. First, to the first point you made there, you really do have the full range of maybe what a pilot went through in training in World War II. Stearman, T6, and then maybe if they're going to fly bombers, they might have gone to the C-45 for training and then on into the B-29 or B-24. So having those airplanes sitting there together really makes that a wonderful story to tell. And you're right. Yeah, price point of what we do. There's they sell out individual seats on the C-45, and there's probably the cheapest seats out on the tour. But it's a great ride and a great airplane. So absolutely, we really hope we have something for everyone that wants to go for a ride. Yeah, so we were talking about, Steve, that how we're going to kind of go through the cycle of what a year is like for us, and our year starts off pretty much the way it ended the year before, and that's maintenance. These aircraft take a tremendous amount of maintenance. Of course, you're talking about 80-year-old 4-engine aircraft. They're a lot of work. I don't know much about the other squadrons, but we have 2 to sometimes 3 or 4 full-time mechanics that are there working on the aircraft. They're wonderful people. They work really hard. They do a great job taking care of these aircraft, but there is no doubt it's a full-time job, if not more. So that's the first thing that goes on for us in the year, and you can see this in the first few slides, is winter maintenance, working really hard, some long days, some long evenings, long weekends, working to get these aircraft out on the road to start touring.
What are some of the challenges that you find with, you said these airplanes are approaching 80 years old. How hard is it to find parts these days to keep them flying?
Very. We do with the B-29. We do work with with DOC and their organization. Some will trade parts. If one of us comes along a large quantity of parts, maybe one of us will buy it and trade and sell parts to the other. So that's a good resource for us on the B-29. It's not all encompassing. It doesn't always meet our requirements. The B-24, we're the only ones out there flying one right now. So it's very hard. It's a challenge. Sometimes we just have to have something made, and that can take a lot of time. That can take a lot of money, but that's just part of it. So that's a big challenge for us is coming up with parts.
But the C-45, the Stearman, those are a little easier to maintain, I would think.
They are, yeah. For us and our squadron, maintaining the Stearman, there's lots of parts on it. It does require work. That airplane does fly quite a bit, but a lot more parts for the C-45, the PT-13. So a little easier to maintain those.
So along with keeping the airplanes maintained, it's time to get all the volunteers maintained and up to speed for the next tour season.
Yeah, sometimes they're a little bit more cantankerous than the airplanes are, but We have a wonderful group of people. We have a great group of volunteers. So yeah, the next event that normally happens for us, normally in February, is our ground school event. When I started the squadron, we would do 2 ground schools, a B-29 ground school that would also encompass the small airplanes also. Then we'd do a B-24 ground school and the small airplanes at that school also. For some reason, good or bad, who knows, depends on the individual that comes. The last couple of years, we have combined and done a 3-day B-24, B-29, and then the small aircraft ground school. And so it's a great event. As you can see, a lot of folks there. This year, we had the largest crowd we've ever had. We had over 200 people come to our ground school. It's a really good time, a lot of good learning. We have some phenomenal presenters that teach crew resource management, teach systems on the aircraft. You know, some of our pilots and volunteers, they do this professionally for United and American Airlines or Delta or wherever they work. They teach this stuff to airline pilots. So our presenters are just absolutely wonderful. They do a great job. You know, I really equate this year our large number of attendees at our ground school to the people in our squadron and our pilots that tour and our crew members that tour, because when we're out there on the road, we're recruiting. We're looking for that next pilot, we're looking for that next mechanic, that next flight engineer, that next scanner. And when we're on the road and we have people that walk up and go, hey, how'd you get involved in this? How do you do this? I feel like we're all open to that. And a lot of these people we have that come are just people we've met on the road and said, hey, you want to come do this? Come to ground school, join our squadron, and you can make this happen. So I really say that we had so many people this year just because the welcoming qualities of our volunteers and our squadron and out on the tour.
Well, and it's an important point that you're making there, is that not everyone who supports the tour, first of all, aren't necessarily pilots, and there's a lot of other things that go into it, but they're also not necessarily from the Dallas-Fort Worth area. You have people from all over the country who are members of the squadron because they want to support the airplanes for whatever reason, but a number of people who want that experience to go out on tour, and they come from around the country to be a part of this and do their little portion to keep them flying.
Yeah, I would say we're probably pretty close to having people from almost all 50 states. I live in Little Rock, Arkansas. We have members who live in California. We have Florida members. We have people in New Hampshire. Again, I don't know if I would say the majority, but it's probably pretty close to 50-50 that of our members do not live in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. They come there for ground school each year. They may come there for training of some sort. And the rest of the time, we just meet out on the road to do our job.
And one of the things too with the crews, not necessarily the flight crews, but those the scanners and people who are taking care of the airplane and the passengers when they're on tour, you actually get in the airplane, you actually learn and get hands-on experience before you end up out on tour.
Yeah, absolutely. So that's part of what we do at ground school is especially our scanners, and our scanners may, again, like you said, not necessarily pilots. They may not be pilots at all. This may be their first aviation experience they've ever had, and they get involved for whatever reason they want to. They're just interested in the airplanes or honoring a family member that was a crew member on one of the aircraft. But for us flying the B-24 and the B-29, they are required crew members. We cannot operate these aircraft without them. The B-29 requires 3 scanners. The B-24 requires 1 scanner when we fly the aircraft. And so they are essential crew. We have to have them. They get trained to be a crew member and do their job. And again, some of these people have had no aviation experience whatsoever, but they work really hard and they do an outstanding job. We couldn't do it without them.
Great. And of course, it wouldn't be a CAF event if there wasn't some fun too.
Oh yeah, yeah. So that's the other thing about ground school is it's kind of a homecoming for us. And we spend our summers out on tour, working and traveling around. As the fall comes along, we all kind of take a break, go back home. Normally after Aviation Discovery Fest, that's normally our last event for the year, and then we don't see each other, throughout Christmas, maybe January. So February ground school is our time to get back together with our friends. I'm gonna say our friends and family, Steve, because when we're out on the road, we kind of have to be each other's families also. we spend a lot of long days together, working hard together. You get done you've been out on the ramp for 12 hours a day. We go eat dinner together. So we really become very close. I've met some wonderful people, some friends that I would consider some of my best friends right now that not only do I look for aviation advice from, but just life, advice on life.
And one of in that very first picture, I'm going to back up because I'm going to embarrass him. Steve Shapiro, right there.
Absolutely.
Yeah, he's watching tonight. He said when we were talking about all the airplanes coming into an airport and setting up, he said it was pretty much a flying circus. That's what he called it. So
that's a good name for it. And yes, and Steve Shapiro does deserve to be embarrassed.
That's right. And we just kind of breezed over it, but what does a scanner actually do? I mean, that's I know what a scanner is for a radio, but on an aircraft, what are the and you said it's essential crew. So what is their role?
Yeah, so the biggest thing in flying the bombers up in the front, there's a lot of things that we can't see. We can't see the tires. We can't see the back of the engines. We can't see if the flaps are in the correct position. So that's kind of part of their flight crew job, is that they have essential call outs to tell us, hey, the flaps are in the position that we selected, or the landing gear is down, that there's not oil or something on the tires or brakes. If we have maybe smoke or something abnormal coming from an engine, they're trained to call that out. Also, especially taxiing FIFI, some of the smaller runways and taxiways that we deal with, they're there to keep an eye on our tires to make sure we don't run off the taxiway. They also, during the ride flights, they're there to help kind of control the passengers, make sure they're seatbelted before takeoff, and then when they're able to move around the cabin or cockpit during the flight, they kind of help control the passengers to make sure they're able to move around, see what they want to see, and their backs sat down when it's time to land. So they're essential crew members that we have to have.
And you also have to plan for a number of contingencies, and the slide we're looking at now is actually you're simulating evacuating someone from the airplane who's had some medical issue or something, but it's not just necessarily going out, getting in the airplane, going flying. You have to plan for a lot of different contingencies throughout the ground school.
We do, yeah. So first aid training is required for us to have each year, and so we go over that. Emergency evacuation training is not only something that we train for at ground school, but we'll also a lot of times on our transition day, when we move from one stop to the other, when we get there, we'll practice an emergency evacuation of the aircraft. So, we have a good time out on tour. It's a lot of fun, but we have to take it serious also. When you spend a day out on the ramp in the summertime looking at airplanes, a lot of times with patrons who are 80, 85, 90 years old, that sometimes, people fall down, things happen. So we're trained to have some people that are trained to take care of that.
Good.
Yeah, so after ground school, when things warm up a little bit, again, ground school is normally in February, it's time to get our crews recurrent and sometimes initial currency in aircraft. So here we've got Kurt Lewis, Alex Beckett, doing Alex's checkout for the steerman. He was a new steerman pilot for us last year. And so we kind of come together normally depending on when the tour starts, so maybe sometime in April, and get all the pilots current in the aircraft that maybe haven't flown them since last November as things were winding down, and start getting new pilots checked out in the aircraft to get ready for touring. Also, we have to get the scanners and flight engineers, new scanners trained in the aircraft, or just get back and kind of get the feel of things again. We kind of talked a little bit about the hats earlier, going from the Stetsons to the black hats. Well, we kind of have a tradition in the B-29, B-24 squadron. When you get trained as a crew member on one of the bombers, you get a hat. So you can see we've got a scanner there. That's Susan Bancroft. Just finished up her training as a scanner on the B-24 for from Jordan Dressler. She's getting her B-24 hat. And I can assure you, Steve, there is no competition between the B-29 black hats and the B-24 red hats. None whatsoever. It doesn't happen.
Yeah, I didn't think so.
Yeah. Again, there's another B-29 scanner receiving his black hat there. He's also a very interesting story of how things happen, how we meet people out on the road. That gentleman's name they're receiving the hat. His name is David Minnow. I'm from Arkansas, so I call him David Minner because that's how we pronounce it here. But he lives in Buffalo, New York, and he was out flying his RC airplane one day. He saw FIFI fly over, and he's like, "That looks really neat. I would love to go figure out who that is and what that airplane is." He came out to the tour stop, I think 2 or 3 days in a row while we were there in Buffalo, got to talking to people, figured out how he could be involved as a scanner, joined the squadron. And I want to say it was maybe 2 or 3 stops later, he drove down to, we were at Lewis University in Chicago. He drove down there, got a room in the hotel we were in, and he worked with us on the ramp that weekend, and has since, from that being a couple years ago, now he's a scanner instructor on both the B-29 and the B-24, and is certainly one of the hardest workers we have out there. So I love to tell his story because that's how it happens for us. That's how we get squadron members, and it's how people get involved, is just show up. There's one of our flight engineers, Matt Allison, getting his black hat as a flight engineer on FIFI. So, as long as scanners, both aircraft, the B-29 and the B-24, do require a flight engineer. They help us keep an eye on the airplanes, the engine, stuff like that, especially in FIFI. That's probably the busiest job on the airplane. We like to say as pilots, we just point it where to go, and the flight engineer, they do all the hard work.
And now we're off.
Yeah, we're off. Spring training's done. We've got pilots current, scanners, and flight engineers current, trained and qualified. We're ready to roll. So that's how our PX gets around. That's kind of our ground crew there. We'll talk a little bit about Rocky and Alma Smith. They're out with us. They are PX captains. They normally Rocky drives a motor home from stop to stop, towing the PX. Somehow he almost always beats us to the next stop, and he spends all summer out on the road keeping us under control. So normal tour stop for us. Normally the tour starts for us on Wednesday. That's normally our first day that we have the gate open. And normally Wednesday through Friday, the bombers are open for cockpit tours. Standards tour stop, that's from about 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. The gates open. The small airplanes, the Stearman T6, C-45, P-51, they're open for ride flights from Wednesday all the way through Sunday afternoon, pretty much all day long. And the bombers normally do rides Saturday and Sunday morning. Sometimes, depending on stop, maybe a little bit different, or if we just have more sales, we'll add another ride flight. But cockpit tours go on when the rides aren't going on, and people tend to really enjoy that. We try to keep them moving pretty quick because sometimes we'll get a pretty big crowd, but the cockpit tours are a lot of fun. We'll station crew members throughout the airplane to be able to talk about the airplane, a little bit of some of the facts, and also to kind of keep some folks moving, because if not, you can kind of get stagnated at one spot. But cockpit tours are a lot of fun. We meet a lot of wonderful people. Next thing we talk about a little bit is ride flights. So again, the bombers normally fly Saturday and Sunday morning, and since I'm the only one in the squadron that was willing to jump on here and get voluntold to do this, I'm going to put pictures of me on there, right? So this is an awesome ride flight. One of our passengers there kind of took a picture from the bombardier seat in FIFI, kind of facing backwards. So ride flights are a lot of fun. And here's the thing about ride flights, Steve. You can go for a ride in an airplane anywhere at your local airport, and it's going to be fun, and it's not going to be that expensive. When people come out and go for ride flights with us, they're not just going out there for an airplane ride. You can do that anywhere. They're out there normally because those airplanes mean something to them in some shape, form, or fashion. Either a family member was a crew member on them, or helped to maintain them. or this person just has a passion for Warbird. So it's a very big and sometimes emotional experience for that person. We have folks who bring their grandfather or uncle's leather jacket that they had in World War II, and we'll have families that'll buy out the whole airplane to honor their family member. So they're really neat, and they're very, very emotional. It's a lot better experience than I ever thought I would have as a pilot out there giving rides. So we have some fun passengers also here. This young lady, this is at Tri-Cities Airport there in Bristol, Tennessee. She came out to go for a Stearman ride, and she brought her own goggles and her own helmet with us, and she assured me that that's what she was going to wear during the flight. I believe her story was, I think she told me that a family member of hers had built an airplane, and that's the helmet and goggles they wore when they flew the airplane. So that's what she was going to wear, and she and I had a really good time. We have a great time flying passengers. There's a Mustang. They're suiting up for a ride flight there. Of course, everyone just likes to hear that the Mustang go and operate, and they do a lot of ride flights in that airplane. It's a great airplane to have along with us.
Oh, definitely. But along with the ride flights, cockpit tours, there's an underlying education thing that goes with the tour, not just at the airport, but in the community as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So we normally have a press release of some sort that'll go out prior to us reaching our destination or whatever our airport is, or sometimes just our communication with the airport. We'll learn that there's some event going on locally or some group that maybe meets there at an airport that we could be involved in. So this is one of our WASP pilots. That was Bob Markert. And, Nella and the T6 brings a lot of wonderful stories to talk about when we talk about the WASP T6 and the WASP and what those amazing women did during World War II. That's my favorite story to tell, because especially on a rainy day, don't have many rides going on. You start talking about the WASP and you'll have a crowd around you listen to that story. And so many people say, I've never heard that story before. So I really love to tell that story. This picture you have up here now is that was an event at Springfield, Missouri. They had a group that met there at the airport, and we were invited to put Nella in the hangar and talk to that group of folks about what we do in the AirPower History Tour and about Nella herself. So it was a whole lot of fun. That was a Rotary group there in Springfield. So. And the education goes two ways. We get to educate folks about the World War II and history in these aircraft. And as you can see right here, we've got a veteran there. He's educating us. We learn a lot from the people that we meet out on the road. We meet a lot of folks. Unfortunately, not as many veterans that worked on or operated the aircraft anymore. But when we do everything we can to listen to them, because they have a lot of things to tell us that we don't know about the airplanes. We'll have flight engineers sit down in the flight engineer station on FIFI and start telling us stuff about the aircraft that we didn't know. So they are really amazing, and I learn more probably than every year than some of the people that we talk to learn. Get a lot of reenactors that come out and visit us, especially at air shows. They're out educating the public about World War II and the amazing sacrifice that members of our country made. So we're proud to have them come out and visit us also. And, again, along with educate goes honor. We get to meet a lot of veterans, folks that operated the aircraft, and we do the best we can to make sure that whenever we know we have a World War II veteran coming to our event, we make it a big deal about it, and we want to make sure that they feel special, and we'll even give some time to them alone with the aircraft, with their family, just to talk about what they did, climbing the airplane, look around, tell their great grandkids about what they did in World War II with the airplane sitting right there. So we really get to enjoy that. And some family members are coming out and they're honoring their family again, father, mother, uncle, whatever they did. So we get a lot of people bringing pictures out, a lot of books from maybe flight school classes that their family member were in. Some of the squadrons in World War II made like annuals that they'll bring and have pictures. So they'll bring those out and share those with us, and that's really amazing. Sometimes, like that gentleman's holding a picture there, of a family member sitting in the B-29, a lot of times we'll try to recreate that picture with the family member and have them sit in the same seat, do the same pose, and that's always a lot of fun. Yeah, this is a neat story right here. This lovely lady, her name was Grace Brown. She was kind of brought to us by the American Rosie the Riveter Association, the Fort Worth chapter. And that's actually a picture of her there when she was a machinist for Consolidated Aircraft there in Dallas. You know, Consolidated, who built the B-24, they had a plant in Dallas also, and she worked at that plant. So we really enjoyed to meet those people and have them share their story with us. Yeah, so you see this young man here in the back of the B-24. You know, he may not have been back in that position for a long time. So it's an amazing opportunity to share these aircraft with the men and women who are responsible for us having the freedom that we have these days.
And of course, you also have to do a little inspiration, and what better way than cleaning the grime off the B-29?
Yeah, we're always looking for our replacements. So that's training our replacements right there. A lot of young people come out and meet us, and we really enjoy inspiring them. Hopefully, we're inspiring them to to do whatever they want to do. To follow their dreams. This is a dream come true for me to get to go out and meet these people and be around these aircraft. And for us to hopefully inspire the next generation of folks to chase their dreams, and if they're into airplanes, getting involved with them. So we do everything we can to inspire these young folks to learn the history of what the men and women of World War II did, and maybe inspire them to get involved with and help us out.
And they're just the right size for cleaning the underside of the airplane. That's the
Oh yeah, and there's lots of small places they can crawl into. They're extremely helpful.
And we're back to the PX. Now it's fully set up.
Absolutely, yeah. So that's really one of the biggest jobs we have when we get to our stop. Whenever we transition to our stop, normally on Mondays, once we get the airplanes taken care of, we all work together to set up our PX. So again, our PX captain and captains, Rocky and Alma Smith, they're moving the RV around. They're arriving. We're setting up our PX, and we have a wonderful PX. We sell lots of shirts and hats and trinkets, and it's a lot of fun. So there's Rocky and Alma there. They're amazing people. I don't know how they do it. They work really hard. They take good care of us. And I jokingly say, as crew members, you only get so many "Hey Rockies" a day, because that's all you hear on the ramp. Somebody needs something. "Hey Rocky, hey Rocky." You only get so many each day. You wear them out, but they work really hard, and we absolutely could not do it without them. So, Rocky's also our ramp boss. Sometimes it seems like that there's not a lot that goes into this, but planning a place on the ramp to put 2 bombers for cockpit tours and have a safe place to load passengers and start up and give rides in the small airplanes, it's a challenge. So Rocky is our ramp boss. He and the tour leader for the event normally come up with a plan for each stop. Hey, here's where we're going to park the airplanes. Here's how we're going to put up ropes to separate people from the ride airplanes. He makes sure that we're safe and parked for each time we come back in. So really hard-working folks, and they help to keep us going, keep us safe. We've really got to do some really neat stuff over the last few years. Last year, we actually landed at the U.S. Air Force Museum in Dayton, Ohio. They set up a special event just for us. Had the B-29 and the B-24 were there on the ramp. Had a lot of folks come out and visit us, and it was really good. We've kind of developed a relationship with them. Hopefully, we'll be able to have more events with them in the future. And it was a lot of fun. They actually gave us a special tour. They opened up boxcar for us, let us climb around inside. That was really, really neat. They opened up the Memphis Belle. They let us look inside the Memphis Belle. So they're wonderful people, and we're really, really proud to have a relationship with them. Oshkosh, we don't always actually go to Oshkosh. This year we are. We plan on being there on the ramp at Oshkosh. We plan on flying the bombers in the show at Oshkosh this year. We're very excited about that. You know, a lot of times if we're not actually on the field, we're there close by doing rides. This was, I believe, year before last. We were up at Appleton. We were giving rides out of there, and those wonderful air traffic controllers up there at Oshkosh, they're really good about us, letting us come and fly over the field when we're on our passenger ride. So we're proud to be involved in that. Steve, I don't know what's happened. I don't know if you can hear me. You've gone silent on me. There you go.
There we go. No, it's just me, operator error. This year, you'll be actually parked on the ground, as you mentioned, in the shows. Do you know if you're going to be in the Warbird area or on the main plaza, or hasn't that been determined yet?
You know, I don't know. That might have been determined by now, but I don't know the answer to that, Steve.
Okay.
I would think probably on the main ramp somewhere, but I'm really not sure.
Okay. Well, you'll be hard to miss, that's for sure.
Yeah, you'll find us. Yeah. Yeah, so, you know, just like I mentioned, you know, the U.S. Air Force Museum opening up their doors for us and let us have a special tour. You know, our volunteers and crew members on the aircraft, you know, they're using their vacation to come out and do this. You know, really none of us do this for a living. We're all volunteers. We love the people we work with. We love the aircraft. You know, we really like to say the aircraft are the rock stars. We're just the roadies. So, you know, our crew members are using their vacation and their time away from their families to get on the road and support the tour. And we have a great time, but we try to do more stuff to have a good time also. You know, so I like to say when we're out on tour, we're on tour also. We'll meet a lot of folks that'll come see us that are involved in museums or some other type of history in the local area, and they'll invite us to come to their museum or their events to be involved in what they have going on. So, of course, I had to include this one because this is the USS Little Rock, which is in Buffalo, New York. That makes perfect sense to me. But they invite us to come tour the USS Little Rock, which was really neat. And so when we're out on tour, we're out doing some fun stuff also, enjoying our time together. That's a really cool place there, Steve. That's in Springfield, Missouri. That is the B-29 Cafe. So they're wonderful people there. I'm looking at the screen backwards, so I'll say on the right side of the screen, that young lady there, they own the B-29 Cafe, and we let them know when we're coming to town. We invite them to come out and see the airplanes. We've invited them to come out and go for rides with us. And that's a really neat cafe. And we always have a dinner there. They'll block off tables and an area for us, treat us like we're rock stars. When we come in there, they treat us really good. I didn't include it, but there's also a picture of, I think it's the year that the B-29 Cafe opened. So I'm going to say 6, 7, 8 years ago, there's a group of our squadron members standing outside the restaurant. When they opened, we were there to help them celebrate. Another cool place we've been to, that's the New England Air Museum. One of our volunteer scanners and tour leaders, Don Boccaccio, he is a volunteer there at the New England Air Museum, and he got us a tour of it. Of course, got a really neat B-29 in there, Jack's Hack. And so, again, we're out having a good time doing some touring ourselves when we're out there in the summertime. And no tour stop is complete without the tour stop photo. So normally as we're winding up on Sunday afternoon, get things cleaned up, we normally take a group photo, just a reminder of who all was there at the tour stop. You know, got to have a serious photo, and then there's always got to be a fun photo also. So last thing that happens at a tour stop normally is Monday morning, it's time to move on to the next stop. So we normally Monday morning around, depending on how far we have to go, 9 or 10 in the morning, we'll get up, we leave the hotel, we go and turn in the rental cars, load up the airplanes, and move on to the next stop. Kind of a nice, relaxing flight. Don't have passengers to worry about or take care of. We can kind of enjoy ourselves, enjoy the airplanes, enjoy the flight a little bit. Steerman always leaves first and gets there last. Doesn't matter where we're going.
But not all transition flights are necessarily without passengers, and I think this is a great program that you've been able to institute with the airplanes.
Absolutely, yeah. So these folks, I don't remember how we got set up with this, but there's a lady there in the middle of the photo there between those two gentlemen. We call her Rosie, and she sets up these veteran flights, and these gentlemen and sometimes ladies, they'll come right along with us. So they're not necessarily World War II veterans, but they're normally a group of veterans, and they'll come to our stop as we're getting ready to transition, and they'll ride along with us. And it's amazing. They're a great group of folks. We enjoy getting to know them. We enjoy having them on the flight, and sometimes we've been able to set up lifetime friendships with these folks. So they're really great people, and we're honored to be involved in that and have these folks ride along on a ride flight with us, or on a transition flight with us. All right, as our season wraps up, again, normally our last event of the year is Aviation Discovery Fest there in Dallas. After the tour, after we get back home to Dallas Executive, we may do a few more out and back stops from Dallas, but then Aviation Discovery Fest comes along, finish up the tour, and then we kind of do a little bit of fall training. After the year of being out flying the airplanes, sometimes some of our bomber pilots will be ready to upgrade, maybe from a co-pilot to a pilot in command, and we'll get together. We'll do 2 or 3 days of training, prepping them for the check ride, the practical test, and we'll go and get the check ride done. So that's Randall Haskin there. Just finished up his B-29 experimental authorization to be a pilot in command. He's currently our operations officer, works really hard, really busy. We're glad to have him. And he had just taken his check ride there with a guy named Charlie Tillman, who's also an interesting person. He spent time as the B-29, B-24 squadron leader. So he's familiar with what we do, and he helps us a whole lot in doing the check ride to get our crew members trained so we can be ready with more pilots for the next year. Yeah, so I thought this was a really neat thing to add. This came out in the most recent CAF dispatch. Maybe a little bit hard to read there on the slide, but if you look down there at the top flyers, all 4 of those aircraft, I think there's 4 there, the AT-6 Texan Nella, the Stearman, big oily beast from the Indiana wing, and Gunfighter. Those are the 4 top flyers, flew the most hours for the CAF in 2023. All 4 of those aircraft are aircraft that fly with us on the AirPower History Tour. And so, we fly a whole lot while we're out on the road, especially these, again, that's what we kind of call our small aircraft out on tour that fly Wednesday through Sunday giving rides. And those airplanes fly a whole lot. So we're really proud to have that. The crews and the operations officers and the maintenance and the volunteers of those aircraft work amazingly hard to keep those aircraft flying that much.
Yeah. And finally, the slide that I think a number of our viewers have been waiting for, and that is, how can I find out more about the squadron, and where are you going to be on tour and when?
Yeah, absolutely. So that the top one there, AirPower History Tour website, airpowersquadron.org. So that's where you can go and see the exact dates for the events that we're going to be at. You can actually sign up for ride flights on that website. You can do it all right there. So that's where you want to go if you want to see where we're going to be and get signed up. The lower website there, CAFB29B24.org. That's our squadron website. Also a great resource. You can come there if you're interested in joining our squadron, getting involved. There are plenty of links to do that. Or if you're interested, just come to a stop, come talk to us. I promise you, everyone is open and glad to talk to you about what we do and to tell you how to get involved. And we're happy to have, we always need more volunteers, more members to keep this thing going. So that's how you can find us, or just come to a stop we're at and ask questions.
There you go. Speaking of questions, we have several. Bart thinks that you should tell us about dumping the water jugs at the end of a tour stop.
Well, I like to tell people that's the first thing we do when we get ready to tear down, is we dump the water jugs. So we use trash cans filled with water to keep the PX tent tied down, and it is kind of a joke that's actually the very last thing we do. But everyone always enjoys dumping the water. It's always a lot of fun, kind of a celebratory thing at the end of the stop. But it has to be done last, because if you do it too early, we get water all over the tent or all over everyone's bags, or everyone has to walk through it. So just kind of a joke as to when we actually dump the water. That's our last step.
There you go. Speaking of the tour, we had Gene Conrad from Sun and Fun on a couple of weeks ago, and he talked about seeing FIFI and Diamond Lil at Sun and Fun this year, but there's been a little change in plans since that a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah, unfortunately, our maintenance this winter is going to go a little longer than what we've planned. Again, we have wonderful maintainers and volunteers that, they take top quality care of these aircraft, and sometimes during the inspections in the wintertime, we may find a little more than what we planned to find. So this year, our winter maintenance is going to go longer than what we expected. So the airplanes, unfortunately, are not going to make our first couple stops: Montgomery, Alabama, Maxwell Air Force Base in Alabama, and Sun and Fun. We're really heartbroken about it. We were very much looking forward to the event. We were excited about it. We were going to be on the ramp at Sun and Fun. We were going to fly on this air show at Sun and Fun. But unfortunately, just we don't fly these aircraft unless they're safe and unless they're well maintained. And that's not something that we push at all. So it was a very hard decision to make, but it was a decision that we had to make.
Yeah. So I'm going to put this slide back up. So if you want the latest details on the tour, and things may change between the time that we record this and you're actually out on tour, but the airpowersquadron.org is the best place to get the latest information on the tour.
Yes, sir. Yep.
All right. About how many people go out for a tour stop? I mean, and we've seen some pictures, and there's lots of folks there, but traditionally, I mean, do you have sort of a number that you look at bringing to each stop?
Yeah, our normal squadron footprint is about 20 people. Again, you got pilots there, you've got flight engineers, mechanics. A lot of times our flight engineers are mechanics. Some of us as pilots, we're mechanics too. Sometimes if we're not flying the aircraft, we're working on the aircraft to make sure it's safe for our next ride flight. We have a tour leader who is also a busy person out on tour. They're the ones out there herding us cats around, making sure we're doing what we're supposed to do and making a schedule for the day, also taking care of the customers, making sure that we meet all their needs. The tour leaders are an amazing group of people, and they were really appreciative of everything they do. We also have a ride desk. Normally have 2 or 3 people working the ride desk, and when our passengers show up, they're getting the passengers ready for the ride flights, letting them know, if it's a small airplane, when it's going to be back, when they and getting them with the pilot or a crew member to go out on their ride flight. So yeah, about 20 is our kind of normal footprint for a tour stop. Sometimes more, sometimes less, depending on what's going on. It's about average.
Okay. And when someone goes out on tour, whether it's a pilot or scanners, flight engineers, whatever, it's not necessarily for one stop. You're out for a period of time.
Well, it all depends on the individual. We kind of ask our volunteers. We like to ask for 3 weeks during each touring summer to come out, and that doesn't necessarily need to be all at once. It all depends on the person and where they are in life, depends on their job, depends on their families, depending on how much time they can give. Especially when you have the bombers that if they only fly on Saturday, Sunday, and Monday, there might not be a need for that bomber pilot to be there Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday and Friday. So sometimes a bomber pilot will come in on Friday night, fly Saturday, Sunday, and do the transition on Monday, and then they'll leave. So it just depends on the individual and how much time they can give. And we have some folks who they'll be out for 2-3 weeks, sometimes a month at a time, because it's what they can do. So everybody's a little bit different. We've all got different things going on.
And is there one person or several people who take care of logistics of just moving people in and out, hotel rooms, rental cars? How is that handled?
Yeah, so the tour leader, when we're at stop, the tour leader is kind of the one that controls a lot of that. But we have an amazing volunteer named Cheryl Hilbert. And Cheryl, she kind of looks at the schedule for the year, and she goes ahead and books all the hotels, all the rental cars in advance. You know, and for us out on the tour, it's sometimes she does such a good job. It seems like it's just seamless for us. We show up we land at the airport, there's an FBO, and there's 3 minivans sitting there and a truck for the flight engineers. And to us, well, it's just there. It's always there. No, it's because Cheryl has planned ahead and made those arrangements for us. And then she'll book a hotel there close by for us to stay in, and normally plans a place where there's restaurants, things within walking distance, so she can, you know, take care of us, make sure we're fed. So it's a big logistical activity just to make all these stops happen. It's as someone out on the tour, it just seems like it happens magically, but it doesn't. There's a lot of hardworking volunteers.
Oh, I'm sure. Now, aside from flying the B-29, you're also going to be flying a little different airplane in just a couple of months. In fact, you're going to be flying the R4D, one of the C-47 types that are going over for the Normandy anniversary, the 80th in June. So how'd you get hooked up with the R4D?
Pure luck. You know, no, I've been able to get involved with the DFW wing also there in Dallas. You know, a lot of us folks in the several, you know, in CAF wings, we're involved in several other CAF squadrons or wings. So I got involved with the DFW wing and volunteered and got selected to fly the R4D. And they're going to be over in Normandy this year for the 80th anniversary. So I plan on spending 2 weeks over there in, I believe, late May, early June, getting to fly there around Normandy. We're going to go over to Berlin for the 75th anniversary of the Berlin airlift. And then, so I'm really fortunate to get to do that. I'm looking forward to that this year.
But you're not making the flight from the United States across the North Atlantic.
No, somehow I was able to miss that part of it. So yeah, I'll airline over there, do the flying that I'm going to do while I'm there, and then I'll airline back home. But
Sounds good.
Some lucky individuals that are going to get to do the crossing both ways. Yeah.
There you go. Any final thoughts before we wrap up tonight?
You know, the biggest thing that I do want to share is again, just how to get involved with us. Again, via the website, or just if you see us at a stop, please come and visit with us. Talk to any crew member, see what to do to get involved. And here's the thing about the tour and what we do. I can assure you, none of us are getting rich off of this. We're not doing this for the squadron or the CAF to make money. We're doing that. This is how we support the airplanes. Again, all the way back from the history of the B-29 in 1974, in 1975, when it did its first touring events. It's always been to support the airplane. So please come out and visit us, visit the airplanes, tour the airplanes. Please go for a ride in the airplanes, because this is how we keep them flying. If it wasn't for the AirPower History Tour, I don't know how we'd fly the airplanes.
Definitely true. Not an easy proposition, and we just mentioned logistics with just the tour stops, but all the logistics that go into just keeping these airplanes flying and in the great condition that they are. And we are so thankful for the B-29, B-24 squadron, and all your volunteers, all the CAF volunteers who help keep all of our CAF aircraft flying. It's you know, it's one thing to be able to see World War II aircraft or any aircraft in a museum. I can't remember who told me this, but it said, you know, in most museums, the airplanes are cold and quiet, but at the CAF, they're loud and noisy and they drip oil, and you get to see them and hear them and smell them in their natural environment, and that's really a unique experience.
Yeah, that's true. And you know, the other thing we like to say is if people didn't want to come out and go for a B-29 ride, then we wouldn't get to go for a B-29 ride either. So
that's true.
Please come out and go for a ride with us and visit the airplanes.
Sounds good. Jeremy, thank you so much for being our guest tonight, and that's going to wrap up the show. Remember to like and share our Warbird Tube videos, and subscribe. If you do on YouTube, click that bell icon, and you'll get notifications when new episodes are posted. Now, if you have any feedback on tonight's show or any of the other shows that we've had, or a guest you'd like us to feature, please send Leah Block an email at media@cafhq.org. And until next time, thanks for joining us. I'm Steve Buss. Have a great night.